Hey, welcome to another edition of the A Game. I'm Rob Akampora, bunkered in my apartment right on the Jersey Shore, not far from Asbury Park, where this guy, I sort of have a history with him, Asbury Park, and my first radio station. To set up how I first met Michael Eisenstein, the band Letters to Cleo had stopped by my radio station, FM 106.3 WHTG. Now, I don't know, Mike, if you ever knew the whole story, but you were playing at a small venue in Asbury. It was probably one of the first gigs I think you were doing kind of outside of Boston. You'd done some, but it was like your first trip to Jersey, basically. Definitely. And then, yeah. So we get the club owners telling us about this band. And then all of a sudden, about an hour's notice, I say, hey, Rob, you're going to be interviewing this band. I'm like, what? Good. I have a little bit of background here. So I pop the CD in the player. I'm listening to the song, and I'm going, oh, this is good. All right. So what do I need to know about? And then the band comes in, and honestly, it gelled. I mean, for whatever reason, Michael and I, it was like Michael, Kay, Stacy, everybody, we just got along, a lot of laughs. And anytime they came to town, I was like, I find myself at the show in one way, shape, or form. But I got to see the band kind of grow from smaller venue to bigger venue. And it's been just a joy to kind of know them. And on top of that, when I left the radio station I was working at, Michael and Kay do this great article for the local press here, the Asbury Park Press, and are like thanking me profusely. And I'm like going, dude, all I did was bring you in the studio. But it was, I realized now looking back, that was a really big deal at that point because it was sort of the beginning of, let's say, that ride for you guys getting here and now to become the hit that it was.
Yeah, I mean, that was our first interview on a commercial radio station. Yeah. That wasn't like, a Sunday night specialty show, like a prime time interview on a commercial radio station. It was a big deal. We were excited,
and again, I mean, we're going back to 19 God. The album wasn't, by the way, this is Michael Eisenstein from Letters to Cleo and many other bands, which we will talk about here on the A Game for sure. At that point, you were still on the small label. I don't think you weren't even on Giant Records at that point. So this was
no, we were on Cherry Disc. This was probably maybe spring of '94 or something like that.
Something like that. So I was thinking the album had been out there maybe about a year at that point from its initial release, right?
If even. Yeah. We were in that little van. I mean, I don't know if we were even,
It's funny you're saying that. I remember the little van pulling up to the station. Yeah. That's the funny part. Oh my God. But it was that. And I watched you guys go from a smaller venue. Then I remember the Fast Lane in Asbury Park. One of my favorite moments with this band actually was just like, by the way, very few of us, I think, were sober at this point. Although, not that I want your kids to know this. Your dad was a perfect gentleman. No. We were having fun. And to the point where they just broke out into a Weezer cover at the end of it just for fun. And suddenly I'm doing the whoa, whoa, whoas on stage. I'm like going, oh God, these people are crazy. I love them.
In that stage of our career, we were very much into that sort of like Replacements concept of like impromptu cover. We don't know if we know it or not. Let's just try and get as far as we can.
And that's the funny part. I remember you guys saying you never really tried it. You wanted to do it. And you did. Stacey Jones is coming down from the drums. He's starting to sing. Everybody's kind of doing a different thing. And it was just, and it's like, it was a small crowd, but the crowd was really into it. And I'm sitting there going, how the hell did I get up on stage singing along? Somebody told me this. I don't know.
And that song was new at the time.
Yes, it was.
That song was brand new.
Yeah. And obviously covers are a big part of your life in a sense, which I want to get into.
Yeah.
Before I even go any further with the band, I got to say, by the way, how are your kids doing? How are Zoe and Henry doing?
I mean, they're doing as well as they can. They both had the best, coolest things going on possible when this all started. Henry's a senior in high school. He was a junior then, but he was running track. He was in a band that was having their song on the radio.
Oh, wow.
And gigging regularly. Like he had all this cool stuff going on. All stops,
Yeah.
And Zoe was studying abroad in northern Italy. She's a senior. She was a junior in college,
right?
And doing this study abroad program, in this little small city in northern Italy called Reggio Emilia. Loved it. Obviously, that was the second epicenter after China. So she got sent home. That all stopped, and they had finished their semesters online, and all the cool things they were doing either got canceled or whatever. So, but in spite of that, they're doing well. They're adjusting, adapting, and figuring it out.
Right. I think that's what we all really can do, is just try to figure it out one day at a time. Yeah. But it's funny. I was like diving into your Instagram, and Christian is a great photo of Zoe going back many years. I think she's probably about 3 in this photo. And if you, I'm trying to think, Chris, there it is.
Yes.
Oh my God. That is the cutest photo I've seen in a very long time. It is beautiful. I mean, I know it has to take you back where you sit there going, there's my daughter with my guitar. This is a nice moment.
And it's when we still live in Boston, but shortly before we moved to California, and she just turned 21.
That's how you know we are getting old, my friend, whether we want to admit it or not. She's 21.
Yeah.
And I did notice she's got like 1,000+ followers on Instagram. Really? Oh my God. Good for her, by the way.
Yeah. Well, high school, college, then studying abroad, you just pile up people,
She's learning well from her dad, who's got his share of followers too, by the way. Yeah. Now your son, Christian, since we were talking about his son being a musician, there's a great photo of the two of them just jamming out. And ironically, this was also on Instagram, and underneath, jamming to some Weezer.
Yeah.
Gee, what is it about Weezer? So obviously he's a drummer, Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's in a band called Dear Elise. They took their name from the Cure song, Letter to Elise.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And they've got a single out. You can hear it on Spotify. And I just mixed 2 new ones for them that they're, just waiting for the notes back on. And that'll be out in the next few months,
That's fantastic. I mean, you sound like proud dad right now, which is great.
I am proud dad.
I can see you're beaming at this. I think it's great. And that's cool. I mean, obviously, and it's like, I think it's a great feeling when you see your parents just being so supportive, and you obviously, even you've been through the ups and downs of the business, and you're still like, hey, look, you want to do this, we'll do it. I'll help you as much as I can, and let's do it right.
Yeah, I mean, when he first started playing, he wouldn't talk to me about music. He wouldn't let us catch him listening to music. He was taking lessons at the school where I teach, and if he was going to be in any of the ensembles, he didn't like to be in the ones that I was involved with. He really wanted to kind of get to a point, and then all of a sudden he started asking me questions. Once he felt like he was okay,
right,
he could play a little bit, then he was like, hey, Dad, what about this song? Or and he was in a band. I remember this one thing that was funny. He was playing in a band. They were doing a Foo Fighters cover, My Hero.
Great song.
Right. Fantastic song. But I guess there's I didn't know this, never noticed at the time, but I guess there's 2 drum parts that are overdubbed that are unplayable. You'd have to have 3 arms, and he's asking me, he's like, Dad, can you listen to this? It sounds like he's hitting the hi-hat and doing flams of the toms and the snare at the same time. How is that pop? What's happening? And, we broke it down. We watched some YouTube videos and came up with a playable part. But that was one of the first things he reached out to me on. Can you help me with this? I'm confused.
That's wonderful. Oh my God. Definitely something to look into, and we will mention the band again before we wrap up today. Here,
great.
Michael Eisenstein from Letters to Cleo and many other outfits is here on the A Game. Obviously, Here and Now launched everything, but before there was Letters to Cleo, and this was an interesting tidbit that I didn't even realize. And I'm familiar with the lady. I mean, she's won Grammy Awards. She is one of the more underrated R&B artists out there. But what is your connection to Layla Hathaway? This was pre Letters to Cleo?
Yeah, the connection is she was my college girlfriend.
Oh my, you're a god. I love you even more. Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Berkeley College of Music. We were just, lived on the same floor, and met freshman year and dated all through college. And so when she got her deal with Virgin and put out her first record, we did it not like a big tour, but we did a tour in Japan, and we did a bunch of promotional dates and stuff like that. And I played guitar in that band, and it was super fun. Definitely different than the music I was listening to at the time after, but it was a really fun time. And it's funny, a couple of the dudes from that band live out here now, and I run into them every now and again.
That's cool. That's amazing, because I mean, I know your background, I know your style. I would never thought in a million years, and I'm sorry that I'm thinking that way, because it's I figure if you can play guitar, you can do anything. And I mean, in that sense, to do R&B, to go to rock and do other things. I mean, it makes you, above everything, first off, a reliable guitarist with a lot of talent who will always find a way to be employed.
I hope so.
With Letters to Cleo, though, when Here and Now hits, I mean, now it becomes this, okay, after almost 2 years of the album being out, here you are. Now suddenly everybody's starting to know the band, and now it gets a little crazy. Because I was seeing it just when you were coming back to Jersey, the level of this, where it went from smaller to a little bigger to a lot bigger. And I can only imagine it's not an overnight success. I think that's what people seem to forget. You know, there was that how many years of that Aurora Borealis album being out there, and then you get there. Now it's the whirlwind afterwards, where it's like going, okay, it took us how many years to get here, and how many seconds for it to last? For like,
yeah, the band started coming out of the ashes of an old band that Greg and Kay had together in, I think, early 1991. Their old guitar player wasn't interested in being in a band anymore, and he kind of covered them. And they fished around, and like a couple of guys were temps and filling in friends. And then I joined in sort of fall of 91.
Okay.
And we gigged like crazy around New England that whole year. And there was about a year after that Stacy joined.
Right.
And then Scott Reebling came in later that year. And that's when we kind of had just released the first album that you're talking about. And so that was in like late 93. And then, you know, we'd always done our like little regional tours. We started stretching it out a little bit, you know, and that's when we started coming down to Jersey and Philly and, you know, Baltimore, just, you know, all on our own dime, you know, eating fast food. There was a place across the street from T-Birds. We used to buy these fish sandwiches for like $3. They were the size of your arm, you know, and you could live off it for like 2 or 3 days. So everyone would get one.
Right. And be like, let's hope that the van doesn't stink of fish after a while, please.
Oh, it did.
Of course it did. And I hate to say it this way, because I almost feel like, as a fan of the band and getting to know you guys, it was like, it almost seemed too quick. I mean, now that here we are in 2020, it's easier said than done, but it was like, it almost felt like, hey, look, there should have been more. I mean, it wasn't a bad ride, and I don't think anybody's going to complain about the ride, but it almost felt like there could have been a little bit more. Am I off base by thinking that way?
No, because I think we were musically, I think we were really hitting our stride like after that. Yeah. You know, after all the heavy touring and the, you know, I think, you know, songwriting wise, our records got better. But there's a lot about the music business, about timing, about the political things that go on at radio.
Yeah.
Especially at that time when these, you know, big conglomerates were starting to control more and more stations, so that it, like, you know, if you weren't in with that programmer who was programming 15 stations, you weren't going to be on any of those. Where earlier you could kind of like tick away and grab an HTG and grab these regional stations and build it up. Where it became harder to do that when these big corporate structures were controlling 30 stations.
Sure.
Like that, you know?
And since we're talking about smaller stations, I'd be remiss not to mention out of Boston, WFNX, who obviously was a big supporter of you guys back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
WFNX and WBCN.
WBCN,
you know,
as well, yeah.
Together, it's like they get one. We started getting in the regular rotation on FNX, I remember first. It was like, we were a pretty good local band before that. Like, we could play a 200 capacity place and fill it up.
Right. It puts you in a good status in that city for sure.
But then once we got on the radio, it was like everything doubled.
Makes sense.
And it was not just doubled in Boston. Like, we got to the Cape and we go out to, you know, up to Salem or, you know, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Like these, it stretched us out. Worcester, Providence. Mm-hmm. Like we could pack them in at all those places, even into Connecticut a little bit.
Right.
You know, so we had a real good regional following, and they went, you know, 3 or 4 singles deep on that record.
Yeah, they did. I think I know we did 2. I know we went 2 singles deep on the record, and then we went 2 singles deep on the second album.
Because you guys were also ahead.
Yeah, we were. We were. I mean, we were like, I think maybe the second or third commercial station to play Here and Now.
If I remember correctly, Boston, and then there was a station in Cleveland that was on super early, and then you guys were right there. Like that was early. That was like the previous fall, and like we were still getting ads the next spring. Like that's when we were on the charts. Was the following spring.
And that's got to be a weird thing because it's that, okay, we go from the smaller label to the bigger label, and now you start to see the results of this. But you also realize, too, it's like, okay, we actually had people come on board so early and kind of make the story happen. And I can tell just the way your memory's coming. It's like there's an appreciation for all of that feeling of, hey, you know what? It was really good to have these stations really just step out for us and kind of launch where we went for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of men and women out there that were working in radio in the 90s that helped us out. Like, you're one of them, and there's like probably 10 more people I could name at different radio stations across the country that like helped our career, but also became our friends, and like that we would see you come back to whether the next album or on this again on that tour to another city nearby, and it was a really special time, and it's funny, it's kind of like it's one of those things that you come back, touring with another band. It's not the same as that energy of the first thing that was your thing,
right?
That and it went from 5 people at the club to 500.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great comparison because I remember when you went from about 10 to 15 people to about 400, and this is one of my most embarrassing stories of my career. They came to a place called the Metro Lounge in Long Branch, so this was sort of a celebration. Here and Now's a hit. Place is packed. Opening act is a Jersey band called Eve's Plum, which featured Colleen Fitzpatrick, who later on became Vitamin C. Very talented artist.
And now is runs Nickelodeon.
Yes, exactly.
Music.
No, she's not doing well. She's not doing well at all, really. But mind you, Michael, Kay, Stacy, and I, we're kind of celebrating. I mean, I celebrated a little too much because by the time I got up on stage, I'm going, ladies and gentlemen, Eve's, no, kissed Kay on the cheek and said, letters to Cleo. After the third song, there's Kay kind of going, hey, we want to take Rob back up. There he is, side stage. He's already drunk. And I'm going, yeah, pretty much. I was like, oh, God, the first and last time I introduced a band drunk. I'm like, oh. Thankfully, it was amongst friends, or else it would have been really embarrassing. Oh, good.
The funny story about that Eve's Plum tour, which we love those guys, but thankfully that was a short tour because the crowd never was quite sure which band was on stage. Like Colleen had the same color hair at the same time as Kay. It was utterly confusing for the audience every time. Like people thought they were late, and then they would be like, "Oh no, this is a different band." Like
Michael Eisenstein's here on the A Game from Letters to Cleo, and you mentioned just a couple minutes ago about playing in other bands and how it felt. You have merged into some of the bigger outfits, but I'm going to mention the first one I'm going to mention. And Christian, if you could put the album cover of Nina Gordon up, because I remember this album. Nina, of course, was in Veruca Salt, branched out solo. Tonight and the Rest of My Life, Hold On to Me, 2003 are all great songs. I thought this was a gem of an album that got completely lost. Almost like the audience wasn't willing to accept Nina Gordon doing something other than Veruca Salt. And what she did was amazing work. Did you feel the same way working with her and knowing this was... And I think it was the cool thing. It was not a Veruca Salt record. This was a Nina Gordon project. It's something she wanted to do on the side.
Oh, yeah. You can hear, if you listen to the record, you could hear like a couple of songs that probably had their origins in the end of Veruca Salt. Yeah. And then there was this new thing emerging that was just a whole different thing. And that was a funny thing. That was my first like kind of real job outside of Letters to Cleo and music that of the 90s. At the very tail end. Right. And she had been working on that, rehearsing that, getting it together. The Warner Brothers was excited about it. She had really great management. Like everything was in place.
Yeah.
Stacy Jones, Letters to Cleo's drummer, also played in Veruca Salt, and they were a couple at the time, and he was helping her get the band up and running. Okay. And like she had some Chicago musicians working with her, like, and one by one it'd be like, this guy's not working out. Like, well, let's get Scott from Cleo to do it. And then it's like, with her, the guitar player, like not quite right. Like, let's just go down to Boston. We'll do it with Mike. And like, so basically the Stacy and Scott and I became the foundation of that band.
Right.
And we went to the studio and like demoed all those songs. A lot of them are very, similar kind of more primitive versions of what you hear on that record. And we got to go out and make the record with Bob Rock in Hawaii. And
That
it was
doesn't
just
suck. Yeah.
It was a thrill. It was beautiful and exciting. And then it was a while before, because of just what was going on her label or something, it was a while before the record came out.
Right.
And we did a little fair out in Central Jersey, at the old Garden State Art Center, whatever that's called now.
PNC Bank Art Center,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, that little venue in Jersey. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, we did like a B stage, like acoustic duo thing.
Okay.
And it was kind of the very beginning of the project. Then put a band together, did the Tonight Show and a whole fall tour, played all across America. We did another tour opening for David Gray at the height of Babylon. Which was great, like theaters and stuff like that. And then kind of when it all died down, she started a family, took some time away, made a record that like didn't work out, so then remade it again. But she remains a close friend, and
cool.
And that's segues to that's how I got to know Jeff from Tonic, and then from there Emerson and Dan, etc.
Right,
well.
and we were just talking before we went on here. I didn't even realize this. You were a part of Tonic for a while, so that's how that came about then.
Yeah, Jeff Russo, who's one of the founding members of Tonic, their guitar player. He is now like one of the top film and TV composers in LA.
Yeah.
He does, the Umbrella Academy and Fargo and a million shows and movies. Go to his IMDb.
Yeah.
But
really? Exactly. God bless him. I mean,
he's killing it.
Yeah, exactly. He's walked into something you just go, bravo, my friend. Bravo, my friend.
And he's great at it. Like he's so good. So when Tonic started playing again, and whenever that was 2008, he was still building the career on that side of things, so he could go and do tours, and then later on it was just he'll get away for an isolated date here and there on a weekend, but he can't really go on tour because he's got too much of a load on his main gig. So they started like getting other guitar players to come and fill in and do these tours. So like I did, I went to the fun like first date with them in Laredo, Texas, and then a whole summer tour with Toad the Wet Sprocket and
nice.
Yeah, and Smash Mouth, and after a while, I don't know what happened. I think they just started using somebody else, but it was probably a year of on and off playing with them. It was great, awesome dudes, and great music.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I know you said to me before we even started, you're still good friends with Dan Lavery, who, by the way, is going to be coming on the A Game in a couple of weeks. I know he's finishing up some personal stuff, so looking forward to talking to him about Tonic and where they're at right now. I know Emerson's been doing a lot of these, virtual performances from his home in Nashville. Yeah. I mean,
do you remember the Murmurs?
Oh, I remember. And for that, you suck. Yes.
So one of the Murmurs, Heather Reed, is one of my close friends, and I produced a solo record for her a few years back, and she plays a big show at the Hotel Cafe every Christmas, and I brought Dan into that gig, and we do that one together every year.
It's amazing the ties that weave themselves into your career and how they continue to weave. I mean, I knew you had joined up with Our Lady Peace, and I got to know Rain a little bit. My running joke with him is I've said to him, I've interviewed him 3 times, and I've said to him back in the day in radio, I go, Rain, you still got one problem. You're still way too good looking. There's your problem. You really need to get into a bar fight or something. I'm getting sick and tired of looking at your face now.
He was doing some kind of like fighting for a while. He was like,
really? I did not know this. Oh, wow.
That was like a hobby of his, like some kind of martial arts. So maybe someone will catch him in the nose one of these days. And...
he needs to have it. Just don't. I mean, come on. He's part of the first couple of Canada at one point. It was him and Chantal Kreviazuk. I mean, you sit there.
Yeah.
And go, I mean, and that's the interesting part of it.
The first couple of Malibu now, I think.
But when you were playing with them, did you get to play on both the Canadian side and on the American side? Because I know that with that band here in America, it's a little smaller, but in Canada, it's a bigger deal.
Yeah, we would play in New York. In the States, depending on the city, your Bowery ballrooms, your 1,000-seaters average.
1,000 to 1,500
maybe
max, I would say.
Yeah, you get closer to the border, you might be in a theater, but like, you go up there and you're playing hockey arenas, like NHL.
That's what I figured. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I did a full year with them when they put out the album Gravity in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Europe multiple times. It was like they work hard. Back then it was like the thing. And it was we do 8 weeks on the road and then come home for 10 days and go back out for 6 and come home for 2 weeks. It was a grueling schedule. Yeah. And definitely a factor on my decision to kind of like move to LA and maybe try to do something not on the road for a while.
Okay. Well, you know what? You have that just sort of that moment that come to, all right, I've hit this point in my life. Do I need to make that move? And you obviously made that move, and it seems to be agreeing with you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's been now 17 years I've been here.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize it was 17 years. Wow. Yeah. Oh my God. And with that, to fill in the blanks, I was actually trying to see you, would have been this summer, because there was this thing that Michael was going to come into town for, because you were, if I'm not mistaken, still doing some gigs with Melissa Etheridge.
I have not for a couple of years.
Oh, okay. Good. I wasn't going to miss you. All right. I don't feel so bad.
But that was another one that kind of came from out of nowhere. That was, again, like about a year.
Yeah.
And a little over a year. And just such a great experience, you know. She's the real deal. Like, I just remember getting the gig, and it was supposed to be for just like 3 weeks.
Okay.
Tour. They added on a bunch to the tour, and her guitar player at the time, Peter Thorne, had already booked another tour that he was going to be doing overseas with some other act. So they needed somebody to just cover these 3 weeks. And I got asked to do it, and then got 40 songs to learn or something like that. And then after learning the songs, there was a couple like pretty big hits that weren't on the list. So I just wrote to management. I was like, this, and this are not on the list, and they seem like obvious ones to do. And they're like, oh, we sent you the wrong list.
Oh. So now I've got to re-educate myself. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so there was some overlap, but I learned so many songs that I didn't have to know at all that we never played. But then I ended up learning the new ones, and sure enough, the very first gig, she's like, "Oh, do you know whatever?" I can't remember at this point which song it was, but I'm like, "No, I don't think that was on the list." She's like, "To D minor, don't worry about it. Just don't play anything stupid. Follow me. It'll be fine."
Sure, okay, fine.
And she had the confidence to just be like, "We're doing it. I'll take care of it. Right. Just follow me. Just use your ears. Don't, and everything will be fine." And it was like, okay, let's do it. And sure enough, it all worked out great.
You kind of lead me into this question I did want to ask. When you are kind of preparing for a new band, it is almost like, oh my God, I'm going back to college in a sense. It's like, okay, I've got to learn X amount of songs. I got to learn maybe some extra songs on the road if they decide to change it up for an encore, or they're kind of this, we're getting tired of this. Let's work these in. So it is sort of this constant education. So for anybody that thinks, okay, being a rock musician can be fun, it's a lot of damn work when suddenly you're going from an Our Lady piece to a Melissa Etheridge to doing work with Nina Gordon. It is sort of you keep reinventing yourself, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, well, that's how you get better too. It's like you go and learn someone's music that you don't know, and everyone's got their like patterns and tricks that they fall back on against. When you're like learning, 30 Our Lady Peace songs,
right?
It's like the first 6 or so are challenging, and then once you start hearing how their brain works, they get easier to learn, and you start knocking them down quicker. Like, okay, how the collective thing goes. You start to hear this is that thing.
Yeah.
When I did Melissa's thing and I had the 40 song list, I had a gig up in San Francisco like right before the one rehearsal. And
let's emphasize that again. One rehearsal. Great.
Yeah, one rehearsal, go play a 90-minute show in Vancouver the following, like a couple days later. And I think that one rehearsal was really just so that she could know, like, I'm okay. Like we didn't run everything. It was like just okay, he did the homework. We're fine.
Right. Okay, we're good. No problem.
But what was the story I was about to tell? It started. I got on a tangent.
Rewind.
Oh, right. I had a gig in San Francisco, and I had this VW at the time that still had a CD player in it. So I burned all the songs onto like 4 CDs and just drove to the gig and just listened to them the whole way there
Wow.
and the whole way back. So it's 13 hours in the car or something like that, north of San Francisco.
And allow me to mention a couple more artists that Michael has had the privilege of working with. Hilary Duff at the peak of her career, by the way. Lisa Loeb. And a guy who I happen to be a fan of from Catherine Wheel, Rob Dickinson. And I can just imagine as a guitar player, if you've never heard the song Black Metallic, it's something you should find. It is an incredible piece of work. And us in the radio industry looked at it and went, oh, good, it's 8 minutes. We don't have computers back then. We are going to take a break. But I would imagine from a guitar player's perspective, to have a song like that, which becomes this, you kind of get a little bit more of a chance to kind of do some things with, I guess, with the Catherine Wheel.
Yeah, I mean, that was a fun tour, shorter than I would have liked, but that was a super fun tour. He had put out a solo record at the time, this I think 2008 or so, and it was just cool music. And that song was the highlight every night for me personally.
Not surprised.
Just what a voice.
Yeah, definitely,
and a great guy too.
I'm glad to hear that too. Above everything else, quite a resume from Michael Eisenstein. He is the founding member of Letters to Cleo, and we'll run down all the bands a little later on because I got to get to my next segment with him. I do a thing called Random Shots. This is because I know the guy. I know a little bit of his career. The Random Shots lean a little bit more Letters to Cleo in this sense, but I think when you listen to the questions, you'll understand why I went here. With that in mind, give me the better movie, The Craft or 10 Things I Hate About You?
10 Things I Hate About You.
I had a feeling you're in the movie. How could you not say 10 Things I Hate About You?
It's just a better movie, though, also.
You're leading me here. Okay. How does it feel to be that is a major cult classic film. It really is. It has withstood the test of time beyond. I think it's almost as popular as it was then as it is now. And I'm sure people still kind of, at times, can go, weren't you in 10 Things I Hate About You?
Well, that doesn't happen, but we do routinely go play shows, and there'll be young people that are way too young to know about Letters to Cleo who love the music, found the soundtrack, found us, became fans, came to the show. There's this younger generation of Cleo fans solely from that movie.
And kind of ties to my next question, and I don't expect you to give me an answer. This is just more tongue-in-cheek. Better song, I Want You to Want Me or Cruel to Be Kind?
Oof. I mean, I have a real special place in my heart for Cruel to Be Kind, so I'm going to go with...
That's why you and I are friends, because, I mean, that's the same thing with me. Nick Lowe, I always loved as a musician, as an artist, as a songwriter, and it's one of those songs that if you listen to it, you just became an instant fan. Not everybody got the Nick Lowe experience is the best way of putting it. Yeah,
but that stuff I just love, and we didn't really try to reinvent the wheel on that one. We just did it faster and in a different key,
Well, before I continue with the random shots, let me ask you then, as somebody who's done enough covers, because by the way, with The Craft, they did a great cover of Dangerous Type by the Cars, obviously Boston band, another great story there. What is your feeling as far as that? You don't sometimes think about reinventing the wheel. It's about, okay, we can try to do it as well, maybe put enough of the Letters to Cleo touch on it to make it ours?
I mean, sometimes you want to reinvent the wheel, but we're basically kind of a bar band. That's who we are in our hearts. We just like rock and roll. And we like old fashioned, just two guitars, bass, and drums. That's kind of what we are. So we generally just try to bring and we have a great singer, so we'll just let her make it hers, and we'll just give her a nice foundation, and keep the energy up. That's what our job is.
Random shots with Michael Eisenstein from Letters to Cleo here on the A Game. Okay, better TV show, Melrose Place or Parks and Recreations?
I mean, Parks and Rec is a better show.
With that in mind, Christian, give me a Ben Wyatt photo right now. There we go. Thank you. I mean, he wore that more than once on the show. I mean, did you guys feel a little bit of the impact during the Parks and Rec run that all of a sudden there was a little more interest, or at least a little more social media attention given to the band?
Oh yeah, it was very apparent. It was in the Twitter, iPhone era, and our phones were blowing up. It was just.
Well, how did that last episode with the concert in town come about?
Well, it's funny. I was not in that episode. I was busy doing a show with Melissa Etheridge up in Northern Ontario in the freezing cold. So I sent Dave Gibbs from the Gigolo Ants to my place to do that one. But that came about just, the producers of the show like just had this concept early on of like Ben is going to be a Letters to Cleo fan, but you're only going to really know that when he's depressed.
Okay. That's
so
true.
If you follow the line,
show. Yeah, exactly.
Whenever he's sad is when that shirt is on.
Right.
And then they just came up with an idea like, we're doing this concert. Let's have Letters to Cleo and have Ben be all excited about it.
Yeah. And that photo, by the way, is from the concert. If I'm going to grab a photo, I had to grab that one for sure.
But Parks and Rec trivia, I am in Parks and Rec.
Explain.
I am a member of Mouse Rat at the event with the gala where.
How did I miss this? Wait a minute.
Because you'd have to really work hard to identify me, and I'm wearing a wig, so I look more like the guy who regularly has that gig.
Okay, that explains it. Because I'm sitting there going, I know you. Why is this not clicking in my head? And I watched Parks and Rec, and now I'm gonna find that episode. You know this. I'm gonna find it. Has to be done. It's a moral imperative. A
good friend of mine did the music for that show, and he would write all the Mouse Rat songs and record them. And he would actually bring Chris Pratt over to my backyard studio to record the vocals back then. And pre Jurassic Park and
Chris Pratt is hanging out in your studio. You really suck, Eisenstein.
He trained my dog. He was like.
Come on.
The guy carries around dog treats in his just regular daily life. And so I had this, who's still my dog now. This was probably 2009 when this happened. But the dog would come to the studio and he's not the brightest dog. And I was struggling with training him. And Pratt had him sitting and staying and walking and coming and all this stuff.
Oh my God. The last thing I expected was this. That is an incredible story. Oh my God. Random shots with Michael Eisenstein on the A game. We got a couple more here. The better cartoon, the Care Bears or Josie and the Pussycats?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right. Obviously, we'll explain to everybody in a second why I win here.
They're for different demographics, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
I'm going to go ahead and, without even having seen it since I was a little kid, I'm going to go ahead and say Josie and the Pussycats because there was electric guitars in it.
There you go. Now, your connection to Care Bears, how did that come about?
I'm not sure. Our manager just said, we did so much like animated children's TV. I have to separate the projects to remember how they started.
Yeah.
There was a guy, the Care Bears property was owned by American Greetings, the greeting card company. And they had this like original programming division that was going to be making like DVDs and TV, and they owned the Care Bears. So they were rebooting that. And there was this guy who was in charge of the music who was from Cleveland, and we were always big in Cleveland. And he just had this thought, like, they would do great for this, and just kind of reached out to us. It was shortly after we moved out here, and we just wrote a theme song, and they liked that. And then it was like, let's there's this part in the movie that needs a song. Could you do something with this kind of theme? And it ended up being like 2 years of doing, probably 15 episodes and 2 feature films. And just like, it was a lot of, you can't imagine how many songs we wrote about caring and sharing.
I think I can. Maybe. But again.
But it was a great gig. It was awesome.
Oh, that's what I'm about to say. It sounds like that was a really oh, wow, this was a really nice blessing. Didn't expect that to have it come, but I'm glad it came.
Yeah, and it just kept coming.
Right.
They kept coming back. Like, we're doing another series of 8 DVDs. Great.
Michael, I get the feeling the only thing that could have made that sweeter is that I get, because I'm knowing the ages of your kids, the timing wasn't really right for them to really appreciate either cartoon. You know what I'm saying? So
they like the Care Bears okay.
Okay.
They were young enough.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. I got to ask this question because I know you've got ties to Boston, ties to New Jersey. By the way, he did spend time in Jersey and now LA.
It's from born in Princeton, raised in Wayne.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Mets, Red Sox, or Dodgers? Who is it?
It's Dodgers.
I'm
one of those guys who, like, it takes me about 10 years after a move to adopt the team. But when I do, it's like, okay, I'm in.
Right.
You know, I still have a soft spot in my heart for the Mets, the poor Mets. And I talk to my dad, you know, every week, and just poor guy.
Oh, I'm sure he's just going off like, going, can you believe this team? Alonso can't hit right now. The pitching staff's injured. What is going on here? No, I'm not much of a fan. No. Your dad and me would have a great conversation.
Yeah.
No, because I've followed your feed, and I kind of figured you were going to say Dodgers, but it's interesting to know that you do have a little bit of background in the Mets. That's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. My first love.
Last one on the random shots. When I was promoting this episode on Facebook, I had Charlene chime in from Sayreville, and she says, I'm laughing out loud how I could never quite get those quirky lyrics in the chorus, the here and now, down. If I were to ask you to give me the lyrics, could you do it?
Yes.
Do it.
The comfort of a knowledge of a rise above the sky above could never parallel the challenge of an acquisition in the here and now, here and now.
Congratulations, you're still in the band.
All right. I don't sing harmony on that part either. I just sing on the here and now.
That's true. Mike, I'm going to get ready to wrap up. A couple more things I definitely want to mention. And one of them is a bit of a somber note, but I know you got to work with Adam Schlesinger, God love him, from Fountains of Wayne, who did all that great work in that thing you do, Stacy's mom. Your memory of Adam Schlesinger, who unfortunately we lost a couple of months ago.
You know, I think about him not every day, but almost. You know, we had met at a Fountains of Wayne show back in about 1996 on their first album, Radiation Vibe.
Great song.
Sloan was opening up at the Paradise in Boston.
Oh, the Canadian band, yes.
Yeah, we met through mutual friends, and then met again one time at Q Division when they were making another record with Mike Deneen, and then it just kind of came up that he was going to produce the back half of the album of Josie and the Pussycats. And that's when we really developed our friendship, because we worked together for, a few weeks,
right,
making that music. And he was just, a great songwriter. That's beyond question, but like, he incredibly sharp, just a real knack for what is that thing about a song that makes it good, and able to exploit that as a producer. Great bass player and piano player.
True.
And we worked together a couple times over the years. Most recently, he messaged me on Instagram about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, maybe, and he's like, hey, are you in town May, whatever? And I'm like, and I was in New Jersey at the time. And he goes back and forth between New York and he used to go back and forth between New York and LA, living in both places.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in Jersey now. I'll be in LA then. Which town do you mean? Like, and he's like, LA. I'm like, great. So he hired me to play on the Monkees Christmas record. He produced the last two Monkees records.
Yes, he did. That's right.
Together. And his picking the songs and arranging them. And again, just keeping the vibe so much fun in the studio. It was always fun. And we would have this knack for running into each other at like random restaurants. It's not always in any given city. Just like, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm playing with so-and-so. And the last time that happened was last summer. I was working on a film. I can't remember the final name of the film was. It was a film that had music storyline, and I was helping one of the stars to get his guitar parts, like play guitar in the movie. And we had just wrapped a long day of shooting, and I just went to this Italian restaurant to have dinner, and he came in and sat down at the bar, like, of course. And we just, had our dinners and wine together and hung out. And that was the last time I saw him. And I had heard from Stacy Jones, texted the whole Cleo gang. We have a group chat of the band, and he's like, told us that he had COVID and he was on a ventilator, and we were just horrified. And then a day later, we got news that he was doing better and things were looking good. And then maybe a day or two later, we heard that he had passed away. And it was just such a shock. It was a real shocker. And one of the other last times I hung out with him was at Mike Deneen's funeral, who was the producer of Fountains of Wayne and Letters to Cleo.
Yeah.
That's one other thing we had in common.
Yeah.
So it's just awful. I hate it. So the one, I mean, I'm really like been okay with getting older, except for that's the
Right.
one thing that I hate is losing people.
Yeah, I agree with
You
you
know?
1000%, man. And I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I didn't want to go out on a really down note, but I'd be remiss not to bring that up because I know that just from what I read, you had so much with Adam, and especially, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Monkees thing. I mean, I think that's such a special gift because I think everybody growing up was a Monkees fan. Just to have that moment where they'd be like, "Oh my God, Nesmith, Dolan's, this doesn't suck."
Yeah, yeah, it was super fun, and as always, and another fun thing was we did a company out of Dallas, Texas called Mondo Records did a big pressing of the Josie and the Pussycat soundtrack.
Right.
And they did a big screening in LA, this beautiful old theater, and we opened the show with a short set of maybe 4 of the songs. Right. And he came and sat in and played the song that he wrote with us.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
That was an electric event. Like you want to talk about a cult favorite, like that music means a lot to some people. Like people are going crazy.
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't realize the impact that had. And obviously it had a big impact, on a lot of levels, financially aside, but it's had a bigger impact just on you, just by the people that you got to work with, the people you got to meet, the fans you managed to become into your world.
Yeah, and the young kids, I have, there's probably hundreds for the ones that I know, but I know of a handful of, younger musicians in their 20s doing it for real. That was the thing that lit the spark for them. Young women who saw that movie of those girls playing those songs and said I want to do that.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well said, my friend. And as we're getting ready to wrap up, Christian, we got to put up both photos. Let's go back to Letters to Cleo for where they were then. That would be the first photo I think I sent you, boss. There you go. That was then.
That's new. That's the newest.
That's the newest?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, because I think I had something newer.
Beard?
I think I got one newer. Well, you got the beard. Okay. That's true. I got one newer. Give me the other one. That one looks newer.
Oh,
see,
that is newer. Yes.
I thought so. Yeah.
Those are both, though, of this current, 2010s kind of era.
Gotcha. And real quick, will Letters to Cleo decide to do some gigs again when we get out of this? Let's say.
Yeah, we can't wait. We have our Novembers that we do every year.
Yes.
And we actually were in a whole big planning to do some more work this summer, more than a mini tour, but not a full national tour that we were going to do this summer, and that all fell through, obviously. So definitely we can't wait to get back out there. We're working on some new songs as well. So hopefully there'll be a whole bunch more stuff once we get through the other side of this.
Do me a favor. If you're a fan, follow Michael Eisenstein on Instagram. It's the Eisenstein, one statement. He's got some great photos. He's also got some things. Before there was a pandemic and people were doing little sessions live, he was doing it before the pandemic. Watch his Standard of the Day and what is it? Oh, God. Get Back, which kind of a tribute to the Beatles with a lot of that stuff, which is some good stuff.
Yeah, that was a fun little creative endeavor on Instagram.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, thanks for the messages coming over. I saw Letters to Cleo at a gig at Monmouth University circa 1995, I believe. Great show. Yeah, they had some great shows, my friend. They were a part of the fabric in the 90s. And I look forward, next time I see you, it's in person, at least over dinner. I mean, come on. It's been too damn long. We got to do that. And before we get out of here, Henry, his band again, give the name and where they can find out more about your son's band.
Dear Elise, and it's either, I think it might be Dear Elise Band or at Dear Elise, and they're on Instagram and Spotify and all that. But they got a couple songs out and a couple more coming.
Great. Look forward to that. Thanks for doing this, Michael. I really appreciate it, man. It's been
my pleasure.
Thanks, man. Look forward to seeing you soon. That's a wrap of the A-Game this week. Hey, if you're looking for me in the next couple weeks, we did mention it during the episode. Dan Lavery at Tonic will be here in the next couple weeks. Should be a lot of fun. Hey, listen, follow me on Facebook. I've got the page, The A-Game with Rob Akampora. Also, my YouTube channel is A-Game, Rob Akampora. Any of my now 21 episodes you've missed, you can find them right there. They're all worth the time. For Michael Eisenstein of Letters to Cleo, I'm Rob Akampora. We'll see you again next week. Take care.